Hello and welcome to the Wise Yourself Up podcast. I am your host, Carla McGreevy, and today I'm going to talk about just getting on with it. I have very little to report. Does anybody have anything to report 12 days into January? It is a beautiful morning here in London. I've tried to record this episode a few times and it didn't work out. And it's so crisp and snowy outside. It's gorgeous. And what else do I have to tell you? After the episode with Maria, the hormone coach, which is all have told me that you have loved, which is great. My period came exactly bang on day 29, or 28-day cycle. However, due to, various events happen in December, I didn't track my ovulation after saying that I would. I think ovulation is a very subtle thing for us to connect to, even though it's something big. Like peeing, pooing, your period, they're way more noticeable things that we release from our body, where the signs of ovulation are way more subtle than that. For most of us, the busyness of life and really connecting to that subtlety can be difficult. I'm definitely going to try this month. So you're meant to ovulate on day 14. And I'm going to plan to really check in on those days this month. So hopefully life events allows that to happen. Because I have very little to report this week, we're going to jump straight into the topic, which is just getting on with it. I want to talk to you today about something that Gabor Mate, it was Gabor Mate's birthday last Monday on the 6th of January. So the big man is 81 and he is so sharp. He's still running about like a 24-year-old from what I can see, and he surely is our aspiration if any of us are blessed enough to reach those years and to have full mental capacity and full physical capacity too. He is such an inspiration and still providing so much service to the world. God bless him. I shared on Instagram, and some of you may not have seen it because I'm not sure what's going on with Instagram. I don't know if people can really be bothered engaging there. And life is so busy and people are trying to stay away from scrolling. So I don't know if that's the best way to reach the people that I work with and all of you who I really want to connect with. So let me know what your feels and thoughts on Instagram is at the minute. And I shared about the Happy Childhood Challenge that Gabor Mate talks about. And what the Happy Childhood Challenge is, it's where a therapist helps the client see that they hold a perception of a happy childhood that is not true. And I have experienced this with clients where they will state that they had the perfect childhood. And I feel it's really revealing that someone would feel that they had to state that, because no one had a perfect childhood. No one's childhood was all bliss and happiness. Everybody has, through the span of those 18 years, surely there was things that went awry and there was difficult moments. It does link to that toxic positivity that exists in our culture, which could be part of the reason that feeds the childhood challenge. It's a tongue twister. The Happy Childhood Challenge exists because children cannot hold two opposites. They aren't able to integratively think. A person is either all good or all bad in a child's eyes, okay? As we become adults, we are able to integratively think. However, that is still a difficult task for us when we love people. That helps us understand why adults will reflect on their childhood as all good or all bad, okay? I'll give a personal example of me. I was separated from my mummy from the age of 6. I live with my grandparents. And therefore, I made any memories with her all bad, or I just didn't remember them. I didn't have any memory, because that makes sense, right? To help a child cope with the loss of a parent, because no child wants to lose a parent. It can be an easier coping strategy to not remember the good times when you do not have access to that parent. And that can happen when a parent dies, a parent leaves, or there is separation where you can no longer be cared for by your parent. And just to round that off, an adult remembering their childhood as all bad or not remembering helps them minimize the pain and loss that a person experienced when abandoned by a parent in childhood, for example. And then on the other side, we have people whose parents were there and they have a great relationship with their parents as an adult, and they really have a great connection and love for their parents. And I just like to say that every child is programmed to love their parents, whether they had bad or good experiences, whether they were abandoned or not. Children are hardwired to love their parents no matter what. But in the event where you are this person and you had a good childhood, it makes sense that an adult can struggle to remember painful events in childhood when they had a good childhood. And Gabor Mate talks about it's also crucial and important to understand what your parents did not do, what they didn't give you. And what I mean by that is often it's what the parents did in terms of painful behaviours or events or things they said, and whether they hit a child or they were really critical of you when you were doing your homework, all actions they did. But Gabor highlights it's important to remember a wee Robin is back on my balcony. Oh, he's only started visiting me since the 8th of December, which was Paul's 1 month anniversary. So apologise for getting distracted there. Gabor Mate talks about it's important to bring awareness to what didn't happen. An example of this is parents not telling children that in words that they love them. That is so important for a child's development, to hear the words I love you and to have that affirmed to them, to their body, their mind, their spirit. And this not happening in childhood will have an impact on the adult in their relationships in their older life, and have been a factor to the core beliefs you made about yourself as a child. Everybody has core beliefs that are untrue that they hold about themselves, that are created in those tender years, those formative years between the ages of, say, it's usually around 3 to 7, okay? And it can be, I am not worthy, I am not lovable, and I am not enough. They would be the most common untrue core beliefs that people tend to hold about themselves. I hope what I've shared so far gives you an understanding as to why the Happy Childhood Challenge exists, why people have that perception of their younger years, and why it's important to connect to the truth of what happened. Because our earliest wounds, our earliest traumas really shape who we are, our core beliefs that we hold about ourselves, and how we navigate the world, our attachment styles, our strategies to cope with pain. And if we are meeting struggles in adult life, which everybody does, then we want to look at those formative years so that we can implement change. We can't change when we don't know what the root of it is and why it exists. There's a tool, nice for some of you probably work with this. This is a tool that I use in my sessions. Well, it's not a tool, it's more a system that psychologists and people who work with body mind would use, called internal family systems, known as IFS. And in IFS, the research shows it's so effective in helping people heal and really learn to love themselves, and love themselves on the really bad days, on days where they really judge themselves, which is so important. And in internal family systems, it explains that a baby is born in all its magic, all its wholeness. And you know that. If you've seen a wee baby, you know that they are a wee miracle who are the embodiment of love. They are so pure and such a force in this world. And what happens is so they talk about the big self is there. So some people can refer to the big self as the inner God. And that's one of the principles of yoga, is that everybody has divine power in them. Everybody has God in them. And I truly believe that. And so there is this God self, this big self, this inner divine who's always with us throughout our life. However, it's deep in the center of us. And we have all these different layers, and life is so busy and is so distracting us from ourselves that we can lose the sense of that powerful self. And that is the work of healing, is to connect you back to your source, to connect you back to your power, your divine. Okay, so you're all that when you're a baby and a toddler, and then as life happens, as you occur pain, as traumatic events happen, parts are developed, and that's what internal family system works with. It looks at your parts. So all these parts that we hold and you are the sum of all your parts of all your ages, okay? However, parts can become excised if it's very traumatic, okay? So there's parts that you may not be able to connect to yet that may be buried deep, deep down in your unconscious, deep, deep down in your body. Remember, Carl Jung named the body the map to the unconscious. When we want to reveal more to ourselves, we have to work with the body, and the breath is the bridge between brain to body. Okay, so we have all these parts, and then there is protectors of these parts are developed when they are vulnerable parts, okay? And they can be what's known as managers and firefighters. The strategies that we have, right, that we would name as managers that protect these parts, they do all they can to avoid danger. And they're active when danger is not present. You're on high alert. So that's the manager part. So that would be, for example, the strategy of overthinking, being really critical of yourself just to avoid what you perceive as danger, even though it may not be real. Whereas the firefighter strategy comes into place, that protector of the parts comes into action when we perceive we are in danger and we want to get out of there. That would be your strategies that you use to escape, to numb, to not be there, and to really cope with the present moment. For example, it could be attacking your partner, it could be eating disorders, it could be drinking. It's usually quite intense, reactive strategies that would be present. And when we do the work of inner child, we get to learn our manager strategies. We get to learn the way we firefight. And then we can reconnect to these excised parts. And that helps us to feel more connect, more whole, and really step into our full power. We want to own every part of us, even parts that we judge as not liking. We are all darkness and light. Everybody has, parts that we, think aren't good and all that. But we really want to own everything that we are, and nobody is perfect. Everybody has these different ways, and this is the job of healing, is to love who you are in all your wee ways, and the ways, and catch what way you judge how you cope, and catch how you judge that you're not perfect, that you and me are flawed human beings, and that is the essence of being human. And you're probably wondering, why did you call this episode Just Get On With It? Is because now I want to talk about the resistance that comes up when I'm working with clients or discussing that inner child work needs done in this world. It's really vital work for us all, okay? There's always going to be resistance, especially, and you all know this with mental health, because it's such a new topic. It's so new. If you look at our grandparents, they didn't have access to the things that we have. Psychology and the drugs like antidepressants, they only came about in the 80s, and the 90s and noughties. Mental health and having a psychologist was something that rich Americans did, and we all judged it as they are all melters. So there's all those levels of conditioning, and I'm not going to get too much into all that, but you know that yourself. And because it wasn't accessible, and we judge things that we don't know, right? And that exists, and that's so normal. So the fact that and I was number one judger of this work, by the way. Like, maybe you don't judge it, but I was so judgmental of it and cynical of it, because it was change. And if you're someone who has experienced a lot of trauma, have CPTSD, you're going to fear it. You're going to judge it, you're going to avoid it, and that's so normal. It's to understand that trauma makes us fear change, but change is so necessary to evolve and have everything that you deserve. So let's move through some of the common resistance that I have had and that clients have shared with me and given me permission to talk about today. A common piece of resistance that I meet when working with people in dissolving their perception of their happy childhood is they feel that they're going looking for problems. I'm doing this in inverted commas for anyone not watching, and that they should just get on with it. Firstly, I just want to say before we go deeper is resistance is us avoiding doing the work, always. Okay? So know that that is the main function of this resistance, is to protect you from doing the uncomfortable work, the discomfort. Okay? And that's just normal. So I think that's really important to hold, that these are all different strategies that we have unconsciously developed to avoid feeling pain. So rather than address our emotional wounds, we can say, oh, we're just going looking problems. The brain can offer that. It goes, the brain is fear-based, right? So the brain is going to fear healing and change. It's going to be like, don't do that. I don't know that. So let's just stay with it. The body loves to heal. The body is programmed to heal. And so the mind, we needed the mind on board. So the mind is going to throw up all these ways just to keep you as you are, because that is the function of the brain. It's designed to be fear-based, and it's just designed for safety. Okay, the body is designed for love, to thrive, to heal, and we want to bridge these two. We want to make these two people friends. So the brain will offer, you're just going looking for problems. Okay, so let's look at the piece of resistance. Why go looking for problems? Why bring our emotional wounds into the light? The most influential thinkers, Freud and Jung, from the early 20th century, stated that our unconscious drives our behaviors, and that is accepted by everybody in the mental health and medicine, that our unconscious drives our behaviors and the way we navigate the world. We aren't even aware of why we do the things we do. It happens so fast. And therefore, you aren't going looking for problems. You're just trying to bring the truth of what's in your body into consciousness so that you can decide who you want to be and the strategies you want to use in the world. By bringing your emotional wounds into the light, you understand yourself, and from that place you get choice. You get choice of whether you want to keep this strategy or you want to change it. You get an opportunity to heal that part and to accept it, because through acceptance, dissolution happens. Okay? What we resist persists. We just end up going round in circles, and we all know that. We all will experience that in our life, of going around in circles. I wish that wasn't the case, by the way. I wish that we didn't have to do that, but it's just the way we were designed. And we really want to shift that narrative that the brain can offer of that you're going looking for problems. You are not. You're just becoming more conscious of the formative years that shape your inner landscape, which can change, which is amazing. The brain can change so fast, way faster than the body, which is such a gift. The body is slow. The brain is fast. Research shows that the brain can change in just 2 weeks of daily meditation practice. For as little as 3 minutes, we get more opportunity to respond rather than react, because the pathway from the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, thickens, which is exciting stuff. Linked to the resistance of you're just going looking for problems is the fear that we'll remember too much. It's a fear that remembering what we know happened and we don't want to connect to will make us sadder. We can fear that it's going to cause more conflict in our family, which absolutely makes sense. A common phrase I hear and that I have said is, I don't want to remember. I absolutely did not want to remember. And as someone with sexual trauma in my life, I did not want to remember more of that. So that was a big personal fear of mine. And I really believe this. You won't remember what you do not need to. What is revealed to you is for you, and it was meant for you to remember if remembrance happens, and you won't remember if it's not going to serve your awakening, you becoming the divine being that you are becoming. I used to pray before sitting with plant medicine, before therapy, being like, please, God, do not let me remember what I don't want to. And I am biased because I personally have never remembered anything I don't want to. Don't get me wrong, I've things that came to light, but it didn't shock me. Things that I didn't really remember that was said to me or hurt me, or I didn't realize hurt me. Of course, those things happen, but nothing shocking where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to me. There was nothing big. However, that's not to say that has not happened for people. It could happen that you do remember things that you didn't remember before. But I just like to share, I've never had a client say to me in the 10 years that I've worked with bodies and breath and memory, I've never had someone say, I wish I had never remembered that. That's not to say that doesn't exist in the world, by the way. I'm just saying I have never met that and I have never experienced that. I think people feel so relieved from what I have observed in connecting to the truth and making sense of their life and who they are and their lineage and past, and it gives them freedom. So despite it being incredibly painful, remembering certain things, it helps them make sense and connects them to the whole, which they have gratitude for, from my experience in working with people. So perhaps you will remember things and maybe you won't, but your body and breath will reveal to you what is needed for you. They are intelligent beyond our comprehension. We have barely touched the surface, barely touched the iceberg of how magical our body and breath is. There's so much we don't understand, but we don't need to understand it. We can just understand it more and more as you live it. If you think about a woman, if you think about the cell of the egg and the cell of the sperm meeting and creating eyeballs and a heart and blood and bones and a brain, like that is unbelievable. And that happens without any cognitive capacity. That happens through total cellular intelligence. And that's what you're connecting to when you do the work of healing, that the body and the breath knows what to do. Just like when it creates a human, the body and the breath knows what to reveal to you, to bring you into your fullness, to heal, to come back to balance, to connect to that inner divine. Another piece of resistance I hear often, and it's actually a family mantra, and my family, it drives me, it creates a reaction in me. Just get on with it. You just have to get on with it. Now, this is me personally speaking. No, don't. I'm sorry. No, I don't. Just have to get on with it. I do not, when the love of my life, who I'm referring to my grandmother here, leaves this earth, I do not have to get on with it. And the love that we share deserves my world to stop, deserves me to fall apart, no matter how incredibly painful that is. And that's how I feel about it. But you have to make your own. Yeah, you have to believe. You have to decide what you believe in and how you want to navigate the world and how you want to deal with loss. And this strategy of just getting on with it, it may have worked once upon a time. It may have worked in the era of our grandparents. They were different humans. They sensed different. Their emotions were different. Emotional intelligence was different then. The world that they lived in was different. And we see this with kids are getting smarter and smarter cognitively and on a sensory level and emotional. They have much different needs to what I needed and you needed as a baby and to what our grandparents needed. And we're always called to change. I share this a lot. We look at it, used to be like the farmers, how big and strong you are was made you king of the castle or queen of the castle or whatever of the castle. Then it was the tech era, how intelligent you are. And now it's the era of feeling, emotional intelligence. Getting on with it no longer serves. The research shows it. 25% of women in America are on antidepressants, and the figures are pretty similar for the UK. Anxiety is at an all-time high, and suicide is the biggest killer of young men. Getting on with it, it shows that it just doesn't work. That strategy no longer works. However, it makes sense why we hold this strategy of just getting on with it, because capitalism wants us just to get on with it. So there's that pressure. And then there's the pressure from people who have yet to sit with their pain through whatever reason. Maybe they didn't have the resource. There's no judgment in people who haven't had access to be able to do this work. But people who have not sat with their pain won't be able to witness you in yours. So they will ask you just to get on with it too. That's not from a place of judgment, by the way. And then there's the belief that it will make my relationship with my parents worse. Maybe I'll do this next week, but just quickly, if you want me to go deeper into this, I will. If your relationship with your parents is bad, inner child work will help you through sitting and feeling your pain. Then you'll have access to more compassion and forgiveness. I really, God forgive me and pardon me, please, if you're a family member, stop listening. I actually would have said I hated my mummy as a teenager and a young adult. God forgive me. But it's because I had avoided my pain. I never stopped. I over-exercised. I had an addictive personality. I just buried everything. So no wonder I felt this way. And I was quite like a dark person. And through the work of healing the inner child, the very last thing I wanted to do, through sitting with my pain and through the work, I was finally able to have a relationship with my mum and dad, forgiveness and compassion. And how lucky I am that I had that experience, and not everybody gets that. So if your parents have passed away, I have worked with people who have felt shifts even though their parents are no longer living. And I've worked with clients who do not want their parents at their table, but in an energetic level, they feel compassion and forgiveness towards their parents. And then on the flip, because we're really running out of time, people who have good relationship with their parents who fear, well, if I do this inner child work, it's going to make my relationship worse, sorry. This work is not about having a conversation with your parents where you tell them every bad thing that they did. It absolutely is not. It's about you meeting you and you nourishing those parts, you nurturing those parts, you reparenting yourself. It's not about you going. Now, for some people, they will have that conversation with their parents. A lot of parents won't be able to meet you in that conversation through not having the education and the access to the therapy and tools that you've had access to. This is about you bringing more that's in your unconscious delight. And that's one of my favorite sutras from the Vedic texts is by the power of your consciousness, the universe unfolds herself. And that means the more we become conscious, the more everything moves for you. The more you're able to change how highly critical you are of yourself, your addictive behaviors, your abandonment of self, the tendency that you have to lose yourself in relationship, whatever it is for you, that's the point of healing the inner child, not to have your parents on trial. Absolutely not. And working with people through healing their inner child, what happens is that they see their parents in their wholeness. They see their parents outside the role of being a parent. That's not the whole of them. They're not just mum and dad, or they're not just mum. They are mum, grandparent, friend. They are them. They're uniquely them. What happens when we bring more and more the truth in our relationships, and whether this is with your parents or your partner, the more truth you bring, the more intimacy and connection you bring. So by keeping things unsaid, keeping things on the unconscious, undealt with, it restricts the depth of intimacy and connection we can experience in our lives. And if you're someone who is holding your parents' imperfectionism, oh goodness, there's so much that you can learn from that, because holding anything in perfectionism creates tension. Your parents can feel that pressure, and that creates struggle for them, and it creates struggle for you. No one wants to be held in that. No one wants to be held in a pedestal, unafraid to be who they are, a flawed human. And also remembering that when there's so much unprocessed, so much undealt with, we have a lot of emotional load in our body. And this is the analogy Mate uses so beautifully. And then we can get triggered so many times. Now, all our parents trigger us, right? We can all agree on that. Ain't nobody not getting triggered by their parents, right? That's just the way of it. It's the same as your partner. Nothing at that level of intimacy is gonna make us react, make us bite, or whatever way you want to put it. Mate beautifully uses that we are the gun, right? If you look at a gun full of emotional load, the trigger's so tiny, yet we focus on the triggers. You did this and this happened, and all the action rather about what's inside of us. And that's what matters. And that's what healing your inner child can really help you do, is reduce the emotional load that you're carrying. And that's what people share with me. They say they have less arguments with their parent. They're able to have more fun with their parents. They actually want to spend time with their parents rather than avoiding them. And if you're someone who wants to become a parent yourself, it is so important, if you can, to do this work beforehand. No worries if you're doing it during parenting, but obviously it's more difficult when you have children. You know, it's more difficult when you're in it to do this work, but what matters is that you'll do it at the right time for you when you're ready to meet it. I just want to finish with inner child work will support you in become who you are becoming, to reduce the struggle in your life, and to change whatever it is you want to change, and ultimately give you more access to pleasure and play and fun. I hope this has helped. This was a really hard episode for my tongue to to record for some reason. Maybe it's all my inner child work that I'm still working through for 10 years and will do probably if I get to live down maybe. And yes, so if you want to heal your inner child, the course begins in, I believe it's 2 weeks' time when this comes out. Yeah, it begins on the 28th of January under new moon skies. You will experience a range of tools, really practical tools, to connect you deeper to your body so that more and more is revealed to you each day. And it's a big commitment, it's a big commitment to show up 5 times a week for 30 minutes, but the excitement of and the curiosity of what will be revealed makes you show up every day, because it's crazy how powerful this work is. It's crazy how potent working in a group of strangers is. And I've never had anyone who has taken part in these courses who said, no, this work doesn't work, these strategies do not work. I'm really proud that I can say that every woman who has taken part has said, wow, this is life-changing. Wow, I learned how much I resist myself and how I'm in the way of myself, and I can see what I need to do to free myself. We can't free ourselves if we're not aware of the chains. And there's so much that we're not aware of and yet to be aware of. Okay. I think that's everything. I have to go, and I'm cooking everybody a roast today. So pray for me that the roast goes well and everybody gets fed and enjoyed the food, because I will have a mental breakdown. I hate cooking and then ruining the meal, and then I'll be so sad. So light a candle, say a prayer. I'll keep you posted on how it was. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it and let me know any questions you have. And if you want access to Healing Your Inner Child, a free recording I created in December, I'll share it with you. Just drop me a mail. Sending you loads of love. Take care. Happy full moon.